And hello. Let me first of all begin by saying many thanks for all the notes of encouragement that have been received by Arlene and by myself. Arlene's dad's funeral will be on Monday, 27th April at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We are limited under the current lockdown to immediate family only, and only 10 of those. So those who are coming know that they are going to be there. Let me ask you also to keep Esther Fischbacher in our prayers. You may remember Esther. She is Roger Galloway's daughter, friend of Adrian and Eve's. She's visited with us, so hopefully we know who she is. But she's been diagnosed with coronavirus. So let's keep her in our prayers right now as well. I ran across this story on Friday. It's a story from a plague in the 1700s. I'm assuming it was in Russia. It was on April 17th, 1708. Um, is is the date that Ambrose, Archbishop of Moscow, was born. He served in that capacity from 1768 to 1771. So this isn't from April 17th, this is his birthday. But in 1771, in the middle of an outbreak of the plague, Ambrose, who's known for his translation of the Hebrew Psalter and some of the Greek and Latin fathers, as they're called, was martyred by a mob when he removed an icon from the church to prevent the spread of infection. That just caught my eye on Friday as I was preparing this, and I thought, wow, plague back in the 1700s. They say these plagues, these pandemics, hit about every 100 years, and so we're having one this year, which I was thinking just this past week. My dad never had to live through one of these pandemics. I hope that you are enjoying spring because spring is definitely coming. This is a photo I took this past week during my walk near Langland Moss, and the daffodils are still beautifully in bloom. I believe they're called narcissus are coming out as well. And in our back garden, um, our apple tree is leafing out. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting more than just 5 apples this year. But it's good to see all those signs of spring going on around us. In our lesson, we're going to be in Luke chapter 7 and look at the faith of a centurion. Again, to start with a timeline to show where we are. This is where we were several weeks ago before we did a quick diversion to the towards the end of Jesus' life on the earth. So we're back in 28 AD. If my calculations are right, we are around June of 28 AD. So he's in Capernaum. We're going to see that in the first verse, and we've already looked at him going to Nain and raising the widow's son from the dead. So just getting into the text, Luke chapter 7, looking at the first 2 verses. When Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. There, a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was ill and about to die. So the setting of these particular verses is back in Capernaum. We looked at Capernaum a few weeks ago. It's the town that, in essence, Jesus made his headquarters. He seems to spend a lot of time there after leaving Nazareth and worked sort of from there as he taught and as he healed in the surrounding countryside. We have several characters that are introduced to us here. We've got Jesus, of course, arriving in the town in Capernaum. We've got introduced to a centurion, which might be a bit interesting. Capernaum was a Jewish town, yet there's a centurion there. A centurion was a Roman soldier. In fact, he was a professional Roman officer. He was a commander of about 80 legionaries. Uh, we often think of a centurion as having 100, but apparently, from what historical records have taught us, it was closer to about 80 that he had under his direct command. So we've got Jesus, we've got a centurion, and we've got a servant of the centurion who is ill and he's about to die. Now, Matthew records that the problem with the slave was that he was paralyzed and at the very point of death. Now, paralysis is not normally life threatening. And by the way, the chap in that picture there doesn't look very paralyzed, does he? But anyway, paralysis is not normally life threatening. So it may have been combined, in fact, it was probably combined with something else. Scholars have suggested maybe lockjaw or maybe tetanus has set him. But whatever it is, he's very ill. He's at the point of death. That brings us then, that's our setting. That brings us to verse 3. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him. This man deserves to have you do this because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue. So Jesus went with them. Interesting things going on in these verses. This centurion had heard of Jesus. So one thing we see is that Jesus' popularity in this area is definitely spreading beyond just Jewish boundaries. That this Roman centurion has heard about Jesus, has heard about what Jesus can do. But he sent Jewish elders to get Jesus to come and hopefully heal his servant. Now, that's an interesting point by itself, isn't it? That Roman and Jewish leaders were on good terms, I think says something about this particular centurion. He undoubtedly was a man of high character. He's a man who the Jews seem to have respected. And his message to Jesus was very simple: come and heal my servant. And it says there in the text that the Jewish leaders, they pleaded earnestly with Jesus. In other words, they thought that this Roman, this pagan, deserved Jesus' attention. But notice how they defended that request. They said, he loves our nation and has built our synagogue. Interesting. In other words, he deserves your help. Look at all he's done for us. Look at all he's done for Israel. Now, this is in Capernaum. So if we go into Capernaum, that one thing that sort of is central in the ruins we have of first century Capernaum is a synagogue. Now, this particular synagogue that you see in this picture here is not the one built by the centurion, not the one that he funded to have built. This one dates from the 4th century AD. But interestingly, and I've mentioned this before in other lessons, that when they built a synagogue, it was built on the foundation of a previous synagogue. So you can see in this picture the foundation of the synagogue that this man would have built. This was the one that the man had funded, that found that black foundation. Notice that the sign there says that the synagogue you see there is the white synagogue. And that synagogue there represents a more affluent time in Capernaum's history, 4th century, because these are imported stones. The local stone, as you can see all around you in this picture here, is black. It's black basalt. But one thing that tells us, one thing we know, being built on the same foundation as the 1st century synagogue, it would be the same size. This one's the same size, the same shape of the one in Jesus' day. And one of the signs that we saw there when we visited Capernaum, in fact, both times we visited Capernaum, they have a sign that gives an artist's depiction of what this synagogue probably looked like at the time that it was standing. And so you see the main area there on the left, and you see sort of an open area with a colonnade. Over on the right, you have some doors exiting on the right hand side of the building, and some on the building in front of you. But quite a few exits there. But that's what this seems to have looked like. Now, if we go inside this particular synagogue, what we see is really probably a lot more elaborate than the first century synagogue would have been. Again, it's white, it's marble, it's very beautiful. It's interesting. It's got some Greek graffiti on it as well, that people have carved in, or someone's carved in over the years. In fact, probably fairly early on, and maybe it's so and so built this. I don't know what those things say there. And then, of course, you can see that it had a lot of pillars in it. It was a very elaborate structure. If we go through across the other side of the wall that you see there on the right, that's that bit that was outdoors. You can see some of the columns that are still existent there. But of course, that was an open with sort of a porch area. You can see around it, and you can see some of the exits then from this particular room. Near that synagogue, they have on display a lot of the pieces of both the White Synagogue and the earlier Basalt Synagogue. And this one struck me as we were walking past it, because it's the Jewish menorah. And this would have been some of the decoration that was inside that synagogue. You can see some of the black pillars, some of the black odds and ends there around beside it as well, which would have been from that first synagogue. Very well could have been whitewashed. It may not have been black that they saw. It may have been whitewashed, so it probably looked white. Because from what I understand, even the houses, they didn't leave black, that they would paint them so that they looked white, the same as we do today. But this is the synagogue. This is the synagogue that this centurion funded, the centurion of Jesus' day. And when I was visiting here, I thought, wow, not only was Jesus here, but we can read about the fella who funded this particular synagogue in the pages of Scripture. So interesting that we have there. Moving on to the text, though, verse 6. So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, "I tell you, I have not found such great faith, even in Israel." Centurion realized that Jesus didn't need to be there. So he sent word, don't come, don't trouble yourself. Just say the word. It's interesting, some of the things that he said there. He didn't consider himself worthy to come to Jesus. Didn't consider himself worthy enough to do that. And maybe he realized the problem of a Jew entering the house of a Roman, because that would have caused problems for Jesus as well. So maybe he realized that. But he didn't consider himself worthy enough. After all, he's not a Jew. Don't know what was going through his mind there. Maybe he realizes his sinful condition. But I think we see something else here. He saw the power that Jesus had. He said, just speak, and it will be done. Man, that's authority. And he realized, of course, what authority was. He's a soldier. Soldiers today realize that chain of command and how that chain of command works. And he's a Roman centurion. So he's under the command of others, with many under his command. As in any army system, commands are given, and without question, they are done. And he's confident that Jesus could just say the word, and his servant would be made well. That's saying something about the faith that he had in Jesus the Messiah. In fact, Jesus said that he was amazed at his faith. Such faith, and not from one of God's people. In fact, Jesus would often say, didn't he? He hadn't found such faith in Israel. Wow. Now that's some faith. In fact, that's saying something about the lack of faith so many of the Jews had. This Roman, he wasn't a Jew, but he believed in Jesus. He had a great faith in Jesus. Get to Luke chapter 7, verse 10. By the way, I forgot to change the title on that, didn't I? Luke 7, verse 10 is talking about the men being healed, which is what that should say there. Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. You see, it happened just as Jesus said it would. And it happened just as a centurion believed that it would. And there's other instances when Jesus healed in similar situations. And we find that upon comparing the time, I'm confident we'd find the same thing here, that the person got well just when Jesus said he would get well. He's well, and he was instantly healed. See, with Jesus, it didn't take a lot of time to heal people. If he said it, it was done. And by the way, it always amazes me, because when we have something like a debilitating, some sort of handicapping problem in our life, and I remember when I had a broken leg when I was much, much younger, that when I got that cast off, I thought, great, I can walk again. But it took me a good several weeks to get my leg to work right. They told me what to do and what therapy to use to be able to get my joints to flex once again. See, this man is perfectly healed, totally healed, because when Jesus heals, he totally heals. All right, what's in this for us? What's in this for us? Jesus, I would suggest that one thing that we can learn is that Jesus has the power to deal with anything. I think that's one thing we're seeing as we see some of the things Jesus is doing as we go through Luke's gospel. But he definitely has the power to heal. And he doesn't need to be there to heal. He just has to speak the word. And it does it. It takes care of it. Now, he doesn't always heal everything in that way that we would like to have healed today. Sometimes we may wonder, why? Why did we have this pandemic? Why doesn't Jesus just heal everybody? One thing we need to realize is that what Jesus did when he was on the earth, when he did these instant healings, it was for a purpose. All the healings Jesus did was for a purpose. And John tells us what that purpose was at the end of John chapter 20. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciple, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. You see, these things are so that we can believe in Jesus, so we can see what he was doing and believe. And by the way, if Jesus instantly dealt with all the problems that we have, will we really know he was dealing with it? Because as soon as the problem was, it'd be dealt with, wouldn't it? So I'm not sure that necessarily would point towards Jesus. I think the question for us is this: do we believe who Jesus was based on the evidence? And when you think about this scenario we have here at the beginning of Luke chapter 17, the centurion had only heard about Jesus. He didn't need to actually see Jesus do something to believe that he could do it. Jesus, he had such a great faith in Jesus. Do we have that kind of faith? Do we have the faith that he had, that we can read about it and realize, yeah, Jesus did have that power? See, in Jesus' healing, he was showing who he was. He was showing that he was the Son of God, the Messiah, with power. May we have the same faith in Jesus that this Roman centurion had. Well, during this next week, we now know that we've got another 3 weeks at least of lockdown. So it's going to be at least another three weeks before we could be together. And from what we're hearing, even coming out of this is going to be slow. And I mean, we have now had to face this pandemic from firsthand experience in our family. This is dangerous. And I was listening to the Prime Minister's questions with the party leaders on Thursday, not the Prime Minister's, the First Minister's questions. And I agreed for once with the Green leader. She said, we don't want to rush coming out of this. We only want to come out of this lockdown be lifted when it's time. And oh, I so agree with that, because this is such a dangerous pandemic. But so we've got another 3 weeks at least. Spend some time with God. In fact, spend time every day with God. Hopefully we have the time to do that. Pray, as always, that this crisis will be over soon, and pray that there'll be little loss of life. Pray for those that we hear, that we know, who get this. And again, I mentioned Esther again. Keep Esther in your prayers. Spend time reading God's Word. Spend time in study with God's Word. And again, I mentioned we've got online lessons. We've got online studies as well through the British Bible School. We've got the Sunday lesson on YouTube, 11 o'clock each Sunday, live on the YouTube channel. This week, it's Jack Payton going to be bringing us a message live from Clarkston. So we look forward to hearing that. You can find links for all that we're doing through the British Bible School at britishbibleschool.com. If you look for the appropriate link on the homepage there is a link that takes us to our classes. There's also a link to our YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, you can find the classes that we're teaching. There's a recording of each of them, not a live recording, but we do a recording of each of the lessons. So if somebody misses the class, they can go back and hear it. So all of those are available on YouTube as well. Just to remind you, Patrick is teaching on Mondays. He's teaching James. On Thursdays, he's teaching Ephesians. On Tuesdays, we've got Mark Hill teaching Job. I teach Ecclesiastes. On Wednesdays and Fridays, Jack Payton teaches Galatians. And of course, on Friday night, we have a quiz night, which is getting to be a lot of fun. So join us for any of those you can. I'm sure it'll be a blessing to you. And we look forward to talking to you at least again next week. It's been good to be able to at least prepare lessons and give these lessons. And hopefully there's something there of a help to you. Have a good week. And I just pray that you'll stay safe. Don't take unnecessary risks.